All right, here we go. Let's begin. Um, all right, so we finished Sif Aleph in Reish Samach Vav last week, and we will now proceed to Sif Beis. Okay, and I mentioned last week I was previewing that the following case is in some ways going to be extremely ridiculous because I don't. It's hard to imagine it playing out in reality perfectly. But yet, we have here the aim of this again comes from the Mishnah in Maseches Shabbos. So we'll read it again. I think more important to probably here in this situation to understand the theory behind this. So let's read. So Reish Samach Vav Sif Beis. Here we go. Well, Sif Aleph had to do with, or your situation was you had your chamor, a donkey with you, and there was a non-Jew with you as well. Here, im ein imo eino Yehudi. Sif Beis begins by saying if you don't have with you a non-Jew, so you just have the chamor. Manicho al chamoro. You should leave the keys. Remember the wallet, the purse that you have with your money. You should leave it on the donkey, or place it on the donkey because you were carrying it on your you were carrying it, and now you're supposed to place it on your donkey as Shabbos begins. Now,
just before.
Yes, ideally. Obviously, if you forget and it's Shabbos, and you should do it on Shabbos as well. But yes, you ideally try to do it before Shabbos. Now, but here's the part where it's undoubtedly happening on Shabbos, and you have a problem. Ukadei shelo yehei in order to not become liable for the prohibition of mechamer, which as the this is not the Rama, this is like the printers that this stuff in. You are leading the donkey. Your actions are what's moving this donkey forward. Whether it's you can even violate this by using your voice. If you are yell at the donkey and the donkey responds in kind to the yelling, if you give it a little zet, however you've trained your animal, so you are violating mechamer. Now, when do you violate mechamer? When there is an akira and hanacha, when there is an uprooting of the object and a placing of this object. So, in general, forget animals for a second. If I am carrying an object in a place where I'm not permitted to carry, whether that's from a rishus yachid to a rishus harabim, vice versa, or dalad amos and a rishus harabim, so I have to have an akira and a hanacha to violate the biblical prohibition of hotzah.
Excuse me, Rav.
Yeah.
Does that mean that if there's no burden on the donkey that can be put on or taken off, then mechamer doesn't kick in?
That's correct, because they're not doing anything per se wrong here. It's when you'll see the Shulchan, Mishnah Berurah, is going to say that if the animal doesn't have an ukaf on it, I believe that's a saddle, right? The animal doesn't have anything on it; it's just walking. Then there's no issue here. So yes, so you have to be it's pulling a wagon, it's carrying a load. Then you're running into issues. But yeah, so
otherwise you're just out taking your donkey.
Otherwise, exactly, you're taking your donkey, as BJ said, for a walk, which is nice. It's nice to connect with your donkey sometimes. Okay.
Cars or whatever.
I was going to ask about that.
You just talk to them when they move or whatever.
Oh, really?
We're getting there.
We're getting there. That's not surprising.
So it's not that far off.
That if I say something, the car will. There may be a difference between the car and the donkey.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too deep into it. But you have the idea is that the car has no choice in listening. Let's say that if you train a trained animal will listen to you. Maybe
You
not.
you don't have an obligation to rest your car either.
Right.
Right, exactly. It doesn't say in the pasuk, "Ata b'cha b'techa avdecha v'matcha v'tesla shelcha," it's not in there. That's what I'm saying. Anybody who has a Tesla, that's not in the pasuk. They have to make it rest. Anyways, we'll get to that specific in Shulchan Aruch when it's written. But for now, you have to have an akira hanach. So what's the eitzah? How do I avoid being chayav? Okay. So manicho la'achar she'akra yad v'regel v'leches. So I time it perfectly. I have a real good sense of my animal. My animal decides to start moving. So my task is to then place the keys on the back of the animal in order so that it does not violate. That it does not have an akira. My animal did not do an akira. You'll say, but you'll say, oh, but you did the akira. Okay. First Mishnah in Shabbos says, if I do an akira and someone else has a hanacha, we're both not liable for a korban. Now, rabbinic law, forget rabbinic law for a second. But on a biblical level, we're trying to avoid that problem here. There's no violation. So same thing happened here. My animal did not do the akira, and he'll keep walking. The lav, because the Shulchan Aruch is the lav akira. He's on the page. Ukashio medes not lahemena. And when the donkey stops, quickly grab it off the back of the donkey. Because now, yes, there has been a hanacha, but what do you want to avoid? You want to avoid that the donkey will then do an akira subsequently. Ragla yani chenu. And then and then after it starts to walk again, pull the same shtick, put the keys back onto the donkey, and then they avoid the akira. And you'll repeat this, lather, rinse, repeat until you get to a place where this is no longer an issue, right? Where you are allowed to carry. And then if you're allowed to carry, the donkey can carry too. That's not a problem at all. Okay? Yeah, don't climb that.
I don't understand.
Not safe. So,
I have a question.
Yeah.
I don't understand that. So the issue is not being able to carry, right?
yeah, let's say you're in a place, whether it's outside the tchum or you're in the tchum, and there's no permission to carry. Yeah.
Donkey is not supposed to do that. You have to stay.
Yeah.
You don't want to have someone else, something. Okay. Instead,
You'd rather, so again, this is for me, basically. Siv Beis is okay, rather the animal, but the animal can't do certain things either on a biblical level. So we're rather the animal is doing it here, but I'm pulling this trick to avoid the biblical prohibitions that are in effect also for an animal that I own. So, and we're going to see that when we get to Siv Gimel, we're going to change the scenario so it's less favorable. What do we do in that? Siv Gimel, Dalet, Hey, Vav. Yes, that's the assumption here. Even if you don't own the animal, Mechamer is still a problem. There are two prohibitions floating around here. There's Mechamer, that's leading the animal. That's your actions are causing the animal to move. And if those movements are then problematic because it's carrying a load on its back, then I'm in trouble. The other piece here is shvisas behemta, that your animal has to rest. Meaning it also can't do it can't violate any laws on Shabbos on my behalf. If it does things on its own, that's, as we talked about, that's its own. That's not my problem. It's does something on its own that you have a dog that was walking around in the backyard,
so that's
and
why
randomly it decides it wants to kill a squirrel. It's not allowed to kill animals on Shabbos, and it attacks the squirrel. Okay, if I know I have a dog that has such a problem, then I have to maybe think about that. But yeah.
So because the animal is moving.
Yeah.
The item on the animal.
Correct. And
it's moving anyway. It's not like.
Yes, because it started its movement, so it's not going to violate the biblical prohibition of Hotzah with an akira and a hanacha.
So what happens if it stops and then you have to take the item out?
I take it off, I wait till it moves again, and I put it back on. And then we have to play this, we have to do this dance until we get to a place where,
But since you put this on the animal stop, why do you need to take it off? The animal is gonna move by itself anyway. But so what?
the animal here assuming, is the assumption is that it's moving on its own.
Right, so it's gonna keep moving. The animal is on
Oh, hi, Bruce.
you didn't put back the animal. Why would you need to take it off?
When it stops?
Yeah. it
Because
stops.
if he then stops and then starts again, that's an akira. That's a lifting up of this object, or it's not lifting it, but like it stopped and now it starts moving anew. So therefore, now the animal has an akira on its name, and then it will, I don't know when it's going to stop. At some point, it's going to stop, and when it stops, that will be a hanacha. And now I have an animal that has done an akira and hanacha, and I have now violated a biblical prohibition because my animal had an akira and a hanacha. So that's why we're just trying to avoid those two going together.
So it actually, the wallet's a bit of a red herring. Animals otherwise carrying a burden. You had the same problem.
Oh, correct. It doesn't have to be a wallet with money here. You could
Right.
even imagine that the wallet is empty. By the way, you could say it's my backpack with granola bars that I took on the trip.
Donkey was carrying. You didn't think you thought you'd make it home in time, and you didn't.
Correct. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. It could be any load here. Yeah.
And if the
Yeah.
akira begins before Shabbat, right?
Yeah.
Before Seder Kochavim, right?
Yeah.
And the animal doesn't stop. It
Right.
makes it all the way home. There's no problem.
That
because
would-
only
would-
the hanaf
It has to be on Shabbat.
has to
Correct.
be on both items.
Both have to be on Shabbat. Correct. Yeah. I would think that would be a great way to avoid this. But here the idea is that the animal is not, I'm not really exactly telling the animal what to do step by step. So that's why you have to just be standing next to your animal the whole time as it walks and ready to pounce on that keys in case he stops. Yeah, Simeon, go ahead. I see you have a question.
Rav, the Torah uses the lashon uvehemtecha, your chamor,
Yes.
and the Shulchan Aruch, it says maniach al chamoro.
Yes.
Supposing you don't own it, supposing it is borrowed or rented or is not, does akira and hanacha kick in? And Mechamer, does that kick in? It
So-
isn't his.
Yeah, so two points. Excellent question. 2 points. Number one, if you remember in Sif Katan Aleph in the Mishnah Berurah, he did say that there are those who say that Schiros Kanya L'chumra here, that we should be cautious that perhaps even a rental, even though I don't own it, but I have a certain amount of achrayus, a certain amount of responsibility over this animal, that therefore I do have, even though it's not mine, it belongs to whoever rented it out to me. During the period of the rental, you might say that it's mine, right? There may be enough grounds to say that it's mine that we are careful and cautious about this opinion. That's point number one. Point number two is that when it comes to, the Mishnah Berurah is going to make this distinction shortly, that, when the Mishnah Berurah makes this distinction, he says that Shvisas Behemto has to be your animal. Your animal resting is your animal. But when it comes to Mechamer, it could even be somebody else's animal, perhaps. There's at least a machlokes on that one. And so therefore, we try to be cautious and careful about leading animals, even if they are not mine. In fact, let's read now in the Mishnah Berurah. I think we're going to see some of these points come to light. So yes, whether it's your animal or not actually makes a difference in some of the calculations, but may not help you all the way here because of Mechamer, which can extend to other animals. So let's take a look here. Excellent question, Simeon. Let's take a look at Sif Katan Vav, which begins the comments on Sif Beis. So im ein imo. So if you don't have a non-Jew with you, the huadin im eino ma'amin la eino Yehudi. Yeah, you could have there could be a non-Jew who's nearby when the Shabbos is starting. You don't know this person from a hole in the wall. And who am I to say that I know this person, that I trust this person? If I say to them, take my wallet, and I have no trust in this person. That they're not just going to pocket all the money. They're going to take the credit cards. By the time I even get it back, a little maxed out my credit card. I don't know what's going to happen. Then perhaps there is no obligation to take that risk. That's what I read from this comment of the Mishnah Berurah. I don't have faith that this is going to be a positive situation. Okay, take a look at Sif Katan Zion here. Mishum.
So what do you do with the wall?
That's the donkey then. Here the idea is that either the Sif basis, I don't have a non-Jew nearby, or there is a non-Jew, but it's not someone I have any trust in. So
He inserted that a non-Jew who you trust.
right, exactly. So Zion, Mishum Mechamer Ika. Yeah.
The wall is a muktzah, right?
Yeah, but I like what BJ said, by the way, because BJ put it correctly. It's kind of a red herring here, the idea of a kiso. By the way, I translated it as well because I think that's what the kiso means. Maybe you could just say kiso means, his.
The contents of your pocket.
Yeah.
Your handkerchief, your.
I don't know. Did they have like any kind of translation over there?
But Rabbi, so
Yeah.
if you have a Gemara saying that
Gesture.
you have, if you get to Shabbat and then you get close to the house, you
Yeah.
bring up your items, valuable items in the Hamor, and the Hamor goes to the house.
Yeah.
And then he drops it off or something by kicking down.
Yeah, if you get at some point you'll get to a place where you're going to have to bring someone into this situation, perhaps who's non-Jewish. When you get to your city, you're on your street, you're on a question, how do I get it inside the house, right? There's almost like you're going to have to continue this charade of the donkey until as far as you can go. And then either your donkey will stop, you'll take it off, you'll drop it, behind the bush in your front yard or you'll have to figure out the last step here. Or you could ask, knock on a non-Jewish neighbor's door who you know and say, hey, I'm sorry, I had a whole situation. Could you see this thing on my donkey has a thing on its back. Can you take it off and put it in your house and I'll come get it, after Shabbos. So you'll have to figure out the last part here. But yeah, you're going to have to continue to avoid until you get to your house. Okay, so here, let me just to be thorough here. Keys in the Jastra dictionary, receptacle, pouch, bag, purse. So by the way, you could say there's no money in this. You could just say it's a little bag.
No, but he's clearly talking.
I would. Oh, actually, it said Bahayuela Imam Mos. Sorry, yeah, sorry, yeah, right. The first line of the Shulchan Aruch said Mos. There's Mos. Okay, again, carrying muktzah is the problem, but here you're dealing with so many other bigger problems that Chazal weren't as concerned with that part.
Wait till I say Torah.
Right, exactly. So Zayin, Mishum Mechamer Iyika. So in order to avoid the problem of Mechamer, Manhig Chamor Te'una Kriya Mechamer. If you lead a donkey, you're leading a donkey that is laden with a burden. That is called Mechamer. That gives you a definition here. Manhig Chamor Te'una. You're leading a donkey that is laden with a burden. That is Kriya Mechamer. Okay, v'isurahu min haTorah, and the level of prohibition is biblical. From the fact that it's written in the Torah, lo sa'aseh chol malacha ata uvehemtecha, that you shall not do any work or any labor, you and your animal. V'kiblu Chazal derot salomar, and the tradition that Chazal have is that malacha shenasis b'shutafus al yedei adam ubehema. That this is talking about malacha that is done in partnership by an animal, by a human being and an animal. The hainu shehi te'una eze davar, because that the animal is carrying whatever the item is. The who, and how is the person a partner in this? The person is a mechamer. The person. And here the human being is the shutaf, is the partner by telling the animal, move, or giving it a little zetz, or whatever it is, however you trained your animal. By doing this in partnership, the animal carries and I give it the instructions. That's the understanding of Chazal of this pasuk, and that's why it is prohibited. Ve'ein over al zeh ela kashi osa akira v'hanacha al yado. I only violate it when my animal does an akira and a hanacha, through my leading it, as such. Why? The lo saseh chol malacha ksiv. It says don't do any malacha. Uvelo zeh lo mikri malacha. And without either an akira or a hanacha, you have to do kol malacha. You have to do the whole thing, not a half a malacha. So therefore, you violate only when there's an akira and a hanacha. V'chein hu hadin le'in isa shvisas behema. And the same is with the shvisas behema. That your animal has to rest also has to do the whole malacha. Ulefichach maniach hakis aleha le'achar shekvar akra leleches. Therefore, you only place it on the animal, on the donkey, after it has already done the akira. It has begun to move. And once it's in motion, putting it on the animal while it's in motion is not an akira. An akira is you use the principles of physics here. An item was at rest, and it was at rest. It's not moving. And only once, and if you then place an object into motion, that's called an akira. If a donkey is already in motion and then an item is placed on the back, that is not called an akira. Let me just finish this line, Simi, and then you'll ask your question. And therefore, the akira is not done on my it's not done on my behalf. The donkey akira before I put it on. Okay, and therefore it's not a akira and a hanach. Simeon, what's your question?
It goes back to what I touched on before. If the Torah itself instructs us, lo ta'aseh kol malacha atah uvehemtecha, then irrespective of this shtick about akira and hanacha that you're doing, the animal is still performing work. So how are you not over on the aseh midaraisa?
Well, but malacha. So yeah, I think somebody was whispering over here. Malacha is not work. Malacha is a very technical. It's maybe you could translate it as work or labor or something like that. But it is a very technical term here. It is a reference to the 39 malachos, and you have to complete the entirety of a malacha in order to violate that malacha. Each malacha should be studied as, I feel like a commercial. Each malacha should be studied separately because each one works a little bit differently. You could violate some malachos without actually completing it, i.e., cooking. But actually, even that, there's what to say that if you remove something, whatever. There's a whole Mishnah about putting bread in an oven and what happens if you take it out before it actually bakes. Okay, but be that as it may. You have to violate the entirety of the malacha, and malacha is a very technical term here. It means one of the 39 malachos, and therefore, when it comes to the isra of hotzah, it has to have an akira and a hanacha. Otherwise, that's not a malacha. It's something else. You can call it that the animal was doing quote unquote work. It was carrying for me, but it didn't carry in a malacha sense, and that's what matters here. And that's what we're trying to avoid. Ian, rabbinic law would tell you under normal circumstances you can't do a lot of these things that we're discussing. But biblical law is what we're trying to avoid because that's the most important in this dire circumstance.
Yeah, because in a way, the reason I'd asked the question before about the wallet was because I thought the wallet created a confusion with respect to the fact that the donkey's probably already carrying a burden. So now I'm on the road with my donkey.
Right.
And I figure I'm going to make it home in time. I don't make it home in time. So now we're going to continue walking, right? And the donkey already had the burden on him beforehand, right? So if we walk and make it all the way home, it's not a problem because the donkey hasn't had a problem.
Right.
But if he stops on the way, just to whatever, take a blade of grass or something that he wants to eat, and then he's going to start again. I didn't tell him to do that, right? So the akira there is not a problem. Because he has the burden on him. The donkey stops, has nothing to do. I'm not leading the donkey, right? That was the language that he used here.
Yeah.
So now the donkey is walking, he already had the burden. He didn't make it home in time. I didn't tell the donkey not to make it home in time, right?
Yeah.
What happens? Because I think you have
But
to
he does the
answer.
work, he does the work for you on Shabbat. He does it.
So that's the problem here. Machamer, you're probably fine, but now
Right.
you have this other piece, which is
But,
Shvisas
but
Behemto.
that's the problem. See, I think that he should have been discussing this without the wallet.
Right.
We should have discussed it just with the burden.
I'll tell you
first.
why the wallet came up, because why would this be a calculation? Because yeah, probably the donkey might be carrying other things, but now I'm also carrying something, right? Why? Because I don't want my wallet. I keep my
No, I
wallet in my
understand, but-
pocket.
but
So
you have a problem with the donkey. And I think we need to understand that problem too, in order to understand how this is a solution. That's the problem. I think you have to separate the two issues. So now I'm asking, what happens in that situation? The donkey stops
Doesn't
and,
get off.
and we haven't made it home yet,
yeah,
right? And by the way, maybe I'm carrying a burden also. Forget about the wallet. Right? Same thing happens,
and
right? And I can't go to the,
Shut down the sound.
yachid, right?
correct.
At this point. So I'm, whether I stop and start within, then I have a problem of walking this distance. But I can't take the burden off the donkey because it's probably too heavy for me to do that on and off, right?
Correct.
So don't we have to answer that question first?
So I think that halacha would tell us, as we discussed, we touched on the outskirts of this last week, which is that if the item is something that is not, and it's not like $1,000 in my wallet, then I'm probably supposed to just place it wherever right? The Shabbos is
Take
coming
it
in.
off.
Take it off, maybe hide it behind a tree, try to find something and then, daven that Hashem keeps it safe until after Shabbos and I can come back and get it. They only made this special cutout because they were worried about items of value. Now, it doesn't have to just be money here. Exactly. Adam Bala Mamono. So certainly when it comes to cash, right, or gold or silver, you can imagine like, human beings aren't just going to say, I'm going to leave behind the tree and daven and hope my lucky stars. But maybe when it comes to my
You
shirts,
work in the diamond district. You haven't made it home in time.
Right.
Right.
so there are already certain items here where Chazal would say, don't do it. And if you do, so then, okay, well, it is what it is. You shouldn't have done it. But if we're talking about it, we did mention what happens if there is a heavy load and it's valuable. Let's say they're carrying, you can figure it out, something that's worth gold bars, exactly.
Carrying very far.
and they're carrying gold bars, and you're not going to put the gold bar and hide it behind the tree and hope. So that's then yes, then you're going to have to start trying to figure this out. I think he's actually about to talk about this case about what happens. He's going to talk what happens if the animal doesn't listen so well. He's at some point, by the way, the Mishnah Berurah actually in Sefer Katan test, we're out together, he's going to throw up his arms and say at some point and say, you really can't do any of this stuff unless it's a sakana. He's at some point, he is going to throw his arms up and say, you can't get away with everything.
How does the animal knows what is the destination? You have to direct, once you direct the animal.
That's why look, there could be a road though, and the animal's following the road, right? The animal, I'm not an expert on animals.
I don't have expertise with donkeys, but I can tell you with horses, you get lost a lot of time. You let the horse lead you home, right? The horse knows where to go. I'm sure the donkey knows where to go also, right? So the donkey knows how to get home.
There you go.
Huh? That's a different issue.
Right.
You should be going home because it's Shabbos.
On the road, you're going to a motel.
Right. So take a look here. Let's read Sifkat on Chesed. Simeon will answer some of your questions about that you asked before, by the way, about your behema. So Ches says Manicha, you're supposed to place it on the donkey. And by the way, I don't want to sidestep your question, BJ. BJ asked before, so I don't know if everyone heard. But what happens if the animal doesn't stop, or it's carrying its own things into Shabbos? And do I have an obligation? I didn't tell you what to do. I think you do, because I think Shvisas Behemto means that an animal can't be doing a malacha on your behalf. Now, I didn't say anything, but it is carrying my stuff. So I am benefiting, and my animal is doing malacha that's benefiting me. There's no, it's an easier workaround if you tell a non-Jew, because that's at least only rabbinic that they're helping you. But here, it's really a biblical, I don't see a way around the shvisas behemto, except for what we're about to talk about now, may help a drop with that. So he says here, manicho va'afilu im eina abehema shelo tzarich lizar bekach. So even if the animal is not yours, you have to be careful with all these things. The isur mechamer shayach afil bebehemas lachem, because mechamer applies even to other people's animals, not only yours. Obviously, all the more so if it's your own animal, the ikatarte, because now you have two problems. So now to solve one problem of what BJ just said, if I am mafkir my behema before Shabbos starts, that's better. If you guys do it on Shabbos, I forget, I guess. So then I have at least avoided the problem of shvisas behemto. And that may help now in the calculation that we just said about if I'm not leading the animal and it's leading itself, and it happens to be carrying my burden, okay, so I have to avoid the akira and the hanacha that's that I am causing through my mechamering, okay. But if it's about a shvisas behemta, well, this is not my behema. I was mafkir it, so that may help a drop if all the details work out nicely, and it's only a problem of me leading the animal. So that's one potential help. And actually, we're going to talk about that right now. Sifkat on tests. Now this is where, now we're going to get to where things are not always perfect. Okay, right? This is going back in the part that, and then it'll continue, and you'll put it back. Okay. What about the animal? Doesn't want to walk. He's not on his own. So he's just standing there. He's like, guys. He's like, shul's is in a few hours. We gotta get home. What are we doing here? And the animal looks at you like, okay, very nice. I don't know what you're talking about. So So you can say, no, move. If you can try to get it to go. You can't. I don't think you can pull the animal. That's a separate issue now already. But here you could encourage the animal to go. Maybe you have a special, unless you say the word, the animal doesn't go. So you've trained it so well. I don't know. So when you can do this if there's no ukaf on it. An ukaf is a saddle, so that it literally is having nothing on its back. Then go ahead. Say to the animal, no, move. Mishum the kevan the beschilas hilucha ein shum davar munach aleh ein shayach bazeh isur mechamer. There is nothing on the back of this animal, therefore mechamer is not even relevant to talk about here. There's nothing on the back. You can say, move, stop, do whatever you want with this animal. There's no mechamer.
Can you lead the animal?
What was that?
Can you lead the animal?
By pulling?
If there's no.
No, I don't think you can pull the animal.
Their brains and mind or something.
Right.
You do that?
That's a burden. That's like a saddle in some ways. It is. Then it's carrying
Like a collar, leash on the dog.
So the saddle, for a donkey is made to carry a load. Not a person. It's made to carry a load. So.
You're saying this is different?
Well, if there's no saddle on it, it can't be carrying anything. But it doesn't.
You can,
But-
Right, exactly.
You can
There's
still,
nothing on the.
you can still
donkey,
sit
how
on
you
the
carry-
animal.
How are you gonna put anything on him anyway, right?
That's a good point.
I guess you put a wallet on.
A wallet can go on the back, but it might fall off.
Of course it's gonna fall.
Right.
Well, Velcro.
Right. Velcro to the fur of the animal. Anyways.
But Rav, it's obvious that there is no prohibition to walk the donkey. The prohibition is once there is a load put on the donkey, that's when you run into trouble.
Correct. That's what he says here explicitly. Then if there's nothing on the back of this animal, no mechamer. That's when the animal is literally by itself, meaning it's walking on its own. It's holding a wagon, right? That's a different story. Because when I yell at the animal, move, right? Because I use my voice and I yell at the animal. By the way, that word means yell. By the way, actually, it comes up. Anyone know in the high holiday stopping where yigar comes up? Chazan loves to make always a big deal of this. Yigar. That's right, with the satan, right? Right, exactly. It's in the Hineni. Anyways, because Yigar lebekola haschelelech, I say, go, move, start moving. After it stopped and stood there, who overall is mechamer? If it's pulling a wagon, it's not just it's got a rope tied to it. That's a problem. It can't be pulling anything. There can't be any burden on this back. You say, oh, it weighs 5 ounces. That's a burden. That even for me carrying 5 ounces of anything on Shabbos is also a problem if it's not like my watch or jewelry, something that is not problematic for me to carry on Shabbos. So same thing here with the animal. The ain zeh. Sorry, the ain lo shum eitzah lihimalek mi'isur zeh. He's like, I have no advice for you how to avoid this issue.
Can you pat the animal? Can you put your hand on its back and rub it?
Yeah, I don't think that's a
As you're
problem.
walking,
You're not moving it.
And the animal will want you to keep doing that, so you start walking.
Oh, that could be a clever way. Yeah, you can't give it a push, but it's a touch. Yeah, I guess I don't see.
Its back.
Right.
And start
It is,
walking.
but it is mechamer though, meaning you're leading it. It's your system, whether you use a voice or you use a stick, or which is not a problem on Shabbos, but okay, let's, or you have a patting system. You've trained your animal in a certain way. That's mechamer. You're leading the animal, right? It's your, most often I assume I don't ride horses or donkeys for that matter. Maybe it sounds like you have some experience with a horse. At least when you watch the horse racing, you see that they use the clubs. But I assume that that's not what happens to everybody. I don't know if everybody uses a club, but I assume that you could train your animal to respond to your voice commands. I don't know if do they use padding? Padding?
Usually I'm kicking in your heels.
Kicking in your heels and shaking the reins, right?
Can I ask a general question?
Please, go ahead.
The heels of
The idea of shvisas behemoth,
Yeah.
is this for the benefit of the animal to get rest? Or is it so that the owner of the animal cannot do a malacha through the animal?
That's a deep question, because it depends on how you interpret the pasuk.
Right. I mean, is it a tzar b'alei chayim thing where we want the animal to actually get a day where it doesn't have to lift a burden?
So you could actually view this in two lights. And look, the Torah itself gives 2 reasons for Shabbos. One is to remember Maseh Bereshit, that Hashem created the world, and just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu didn't do any malacha, as it were, on Shabbos, so too I don't do malacha. Or especially in the 2 presentations of the Aseres HaDibros, the first time it says that I should rest in order to remember that in 6 days Hashem created the world. Second time it says L'man yanuach shurcha v'chamorcha kamocha, so that way your animals can rest like you. And or maybe that's on the second side of Dibros. That's later in the Torah though. It says that phrase though. I'm forgetting if that was in the Dibros or in a different section of the Torah. But the idea is that there is idea that I'm remembering also Hashem took us out of Egypt, and therefore I'm allowed to rest. Like I have freedom, and freedom means that I'm able to stop. And I'm also supposed to extend that benefit to my servants. They're not allowed to work for me on Shabbos, and in some ways, an animal is an extension. The question is the animal like an eved that I want the animal to not work so that it can rest, or is it that I don't benefit? I'm not sure. It's almost like a hashkafa of how you interpret the pasuk in the Torah. A halachist would say it doesn't matter, because whether it's the animal that benefits or that's me that benefits. The halachist will say this is what the halacha is, and therefore that's I don't know. I think you can interpret it both ways. Is it maybe it's partly my animal should rest so that I have the sensitivity that just like I was given freedom by God, so too I should give those humans or animals that work for me a break. Or you could say that no, I am supposed to let my animal rest so that I don't benefit. I should let my servant rest so that I don't benefit. You could view it as both. It doesn't mean one to the exclusion of the other.
So, I mean, the nafkamina, like I think Tom brought this up, like a robot.
Oh, right. The robot case from last week, right? Right. The robot. Well, a robot is not
doesn't need a rest, but the robot can certainly do work for me.
Correct. Yeah, we'll get to. I think it's in the 5th chelik of Shulchan Aruch, Hilchos Robotics. We'll get there. No, it's robots will be a big shaila that in about 15 years rabbis will finally realize they have to deal with the question and fully address it. Okay.
Well,
There's
even today.
Of course, they're already things doing.
Alexa and all that, you can't tell
Yeah, Alexa. Yeah, oh yeah, Alexa.
whatever.
Yeah, we don't have. We have. Oh, we have Alexa.
I don't have it either, but I know people who have, and it's Shabbos.
No.
Don't use that word.
Right on
Yeah,
Shabbos. Don't say Alexa. Yeah. It's the Rabbanon in case you have an Alexa. Even if you don't have an Alexa, you can't say hi Alexa. Okay.
So I'm sorry.
Yes.
You take the item from the donkey, and he wants, the donkey needs to walk so you can put it on, right?
The saddle.
So whatever his item you have on, so you have to lift it.
Yeah.
the donkey walk.
You'd have to
You
if
walk
the
with the
wallet
item.
can't stay on
You
its
walk
own,
with the item.
then you'll need to do it. You'll have to put it the
Right.
same moment.
So
Yeah.
when you put it on, you need to walk with it probably 2-3 steps. Isn't that like violation? Because you have
So you're able to walk up to
With the
4
item.
amos with the amos yourself. With 4 amos with the item yourself. I said 4 amos with the item. Amos, yeah, with the item. So there is that avoids biblical prohibition for yourself. So that's why you have to be very good. That's why I said it's very hard. You have to catch the animal right in the moment that it starts walking, and then just sort of put it right on it. This is a very hard situation. Then let's continue here because he talks more about how it's in some ways very hard. Because he just said the angel I don't have any good advice for you how to avoid the problem here now. Now, even if you made your animal ownerless, the ain over al isar shvisas behemto halal kol panim over al isar mechamer. Mechamer still is on the table, even with an animal that you've been mafkir. The alkanim kasha lo lama bimkomo. If the animal has a hard time standing in its place, right? Yira lishloach lamakom hasamuch. So this animal is not trained well enough that you can pull off the shtick of the starting and the stopping, and you and your animal are not in sync. Okay. Yira lishloach lamakom hasamuch. Try to move this animal in a direction that's to the closest so the closest place you can get to. V'yavi misham eno Yehudi. Or sorry. You should try to send a message somehow. Someone get a non-Jew from somewhere. Like someone bring go to the closest town. Maybe there are 2 of you. I'll stand here. This animal is being stubborn. He won't move a drop. He's standing there like a statue. Okay, you go to the closest town. You get someone non-Jewish. Come back here. Then he's like, maybe that's the best advice I can give you, right? And the non-Jew will pull the wagon and all the stuff to the closest hotel, and we'll spend the night in the motel or hotel, whatever. Okay, great. Be mafkir the behema, that helps you in some ways. So avoid mechamer by going and finding the closest non-Jew. You can go to the someone closest town. Hey, can you come help me? I don't know who you are. You don't know who I am. I know this is a weird thing I'm asking you. You'll come. You'll tell my donkey to move for me and bring it to the closest hotel. Okay, fine. And I'll be mafkir the behema. And even though it's carrying the load on its back, it's not my animal. It's not my donkey because I was mafkir. So the non-Jew is leading the animal with the burden, and I was mafkir, so I don't have shvisas behemto. Now I know Simeon's already going nuts over here. He's like, "What? How could you do that?" Right? I saw the look on your face. What he was upset by what I said, but again, here I have no choice. There's no choice. The whole idea of being mafkir is in some ways it's also a shtick. Like am I really being in my heart of hearts? Am I mafkir the thing? I hope we are. Go ahead, Simeon.
You taught in an earlier shiur about the prohibition of Amira le'eno Yehudi, Amira le'akum. If you can't do it on Shabbos, you can't tell a non-Jew to do it. So why are you selling this now? This cannot be done.
Under normal circumstances, you're absolutely right that you can't. But here, the problem is you have to remember the principle in the background here is Adam Bahul Amamono. If I don't give you a way of doing this, you will do it anyways, and we're worried you will violate it in such a way that it violates Torah law. So the rabbis were giving up on their kavod and said, "Here, you know what? Violate what otherwise would be rabbinic laws and avoid the biblical laws, because we don't want you to be, have it on the record when you end up in Shamayim that you violated a biblical law. Rather do these X, Y, and Z, and minimize the amount of rabbinic law that you'll violate, but certainly no biblical. So that's what's going on here. So yes, under normal circumstances, I cannot go over to a non-Jew and say, do this, which I am otherwise not allowed to do. 100%. These are not normal circumstances. This is a very unique situation because I got stuck on the road before when Shabbos started. And to answer your question, BJ, ideally I should arrange this before Shabbos. If it's already Shabbos, still better that if let's say there are two of us, me, you, and the donkey, that one of us, is holding on to the wallets, or it's on the back of the animal, and it's the animal standing there, and it's not moving. And I'll say, okay, BJ, you stay here. I'll go. There's a town 5 minutes this way. I'll go. I'll find a non-Jew, and that's that. Even if it's on Shabbos, I can tell the non-Jew to do it. Better to do that before Shabbos, but if I fail at accomplishing that before Shabbos, then I should still do that on Shabbos because it avoids the biblical prohibition.
According to the Mishnah Berurah, you should.
This thing got screwed up.
That's correct. Correct. So you have to give them a quiz before you have to give them an honesty test. This is all when you're inside a tchum, by the way. Now watch what happens when you're outside a tchum.
Wait, just a minute, you said that if you kill a non-Jew and you basically give him the animal, you're okay?
I say to him, in this circumstance, I'm mafkir, so it's not my animal. And then I say to him,
The Mishnah Berurah specifically says, "Afilu im ein habehema shalo."
yeah, even if
That's
it's not,
mechamer, that's mechamer.
that's for the Isser of Mechamer.
Yeah.
Now, how do I avoid Shvisas Behemto? Meaning, even if I don't lead the animal,
But
If
he's
I-
leaving the animal.
but I was mafkir it. So the Mechamer is on the non-Jew,
I see.
so that's not me. And then the Shvisas Behemto, it's not my Behema. I was mafkir. I said it's ownerless like the dust of the earth.
They're two different.
Right, so they're two different Yisurim, so I get around both. That's why it says, that's why Yisulak Mikol Michshalim. I am removed from all the stumbling blocks. Okay. I would say that all the biblical stumbling blocks. Okay, anyways. Take care, Richie. Okay, if it gets dark, right, and you are stuck outside the tchum when Shabbos starts, so I'm in the middle of nowhere. Not that I could be in the middle of nowhere, but inside the tchum. Like that can happen because I have 2,000 amos, so 2,000 amos from the city limits, for the last house of the city, so I could be close, but not quite there yet. And okay, so then I'll go, I'll get somebody, and I'll have to come back, and okay. But if I'm outside the tchum, first of all, you're probably really in the middle of no man's land. Like who knows? And you may not even be aware of where the closest town is because it's dark right now. So you have no sense. It's not like today where you have lights. You get close to say there are tons of lights. There are probably some lights, but they're not. So you may have no idea where you are. Probably you're in tremendous danger also if you're in the middle of nowhere. Ain lo heter klal. Really, there's no heter at all here because when you're outside at tchum, your own movement is a problem. And it's the machlokes is the tchum d'oraisa the rabbanon. How far? Maybe there's the tchum d'oraisa is further than alpayim amos. Maybe that's only the rabbanon, and it's much greater for the d'oraisa. But I could be in the middle of nowhere here, and now we're adding the isser of tchum, and it's like he basically says here, there's nothing I can help you with. In that situation, you're really messed over. The only heter here is really what in kom sakana, and I would argue that you may be in a situation of sakana. Certainly, if the temperature is outside, it's thinking of like our ancestors who lived before us in Poland, right? In some of these cold countries in the winter, being outside in the very dangerous climate is not good. Now you're going to be in that situation anyways because it's nighttime already. But certainly to spend the whole night there would probably be a problem, and I would say you should keep going. If you are in a situation, now let's make this 21st century. Let's talk about what happens. My car breaks down.
Had that.
Right, and it was Friday afternoon, and I was on the New York State Thruway in upstate New York. You ever drive? I had this when I was when we were younger. Sometimes I had my grandparents lived in Montreal. I lived in Columbus, so we would drive, and we'd end up going, Buffalo, Rochester, upstate New York on Highway 90. And sometimes the exits between exits, mamish, you'd have 15, 16 miles between exits.
Yeah.
And let's say your car breaks down in the middle of, and now it's Friday night, and I'm stranded on the road. I don't have, maybe I have some snacks with me. I have this, but I have a family, I have little kids. I don't know. Maybe our tolerance threshold for what's sakana is not to what it was in the days of Chazal. I don't know that that's not sakana in some ways. That you're in the middle of nowhere. Again, maybe I'm not worried that the animals are going to come attack you. You're on the side of the road. Maybe again, in that situation, also there are other ways to get the help that only violate rabbinic law. Though you're probably outside the tchum. There, you're probably actually outside the tchum. When you're between those exits, there is nothing, absolutely nothing. So you have to really qualify under the heter of sakana to probably call for help. I don't know. What does everyone think here? Is that sakana? Take a straw poll. This is not you don't need to be a rabbi here to determine is it sakana or not sakana. I don't know. Yeah, your valid votes that it is, but
Look.
I don't know.
it's
What do
interesting.
you
I had a friend from down south, and he happens to Englewood Cliffs. And if you've ever on a Friday, sometimes when there's a backup and so forth, and awful weather and everything, it takes forever to get over the George Washington Bridge from the city, right?
Yeah.
And so he gets over the George Washington Bridge, and I couldn't believe it. And he got out of his car. He locked it up, hid his keys, and started walking.
That's what my sister did.
Yeah.
She did that?
Yep.
Yes. Wow. Now that's
And
it, right?
It's off the FDR in Harlem.
Oh my
She and
goodness.
her husband.
Oh, ridiculous.
Wow.
But they didn't want to drive. They were coming to us for Shabbos. They put on 3 layers of clothes, everything they needed for Shabbos.
Wow.
And they walked down
Yeah.
to 24th Street. But we had something just awful. We had 3 young kids in the car.
Yeah.
The first Seder was Wednesday
Oh, boy.
night. So it was a 3-day yontif.
Yeah.
And Jean had a brand new car and it broke down in right near the exit of
Okay, I gotta
Stonington,
get-
Connecticut. What are the chances you're even going to find a piece of matzah there, let alone
my
enough for a
gosh.
Seder?
Wow.
Pushed the car off the exit and it was, Jean walked to where, he called the police, didn't get any response.
Right.
Walked
Into
Walked
the
to
gas
first
station.
Gas station, said, where's the car rental? Oh, they're all closed. And
Huh.
finally said, I don't know what's wrong with my car. Can you tow it here and lend me whatever car you want? I'll come back in 3 days, pay you for whatever repairs. The guy must have thought, it's a brand new car, this guy out to lunch. I'm giving him a jalopy, but that's what we did. And
Wow.
we made it, but
Wow.
that was
Great
the
story,
closest
too.
we've ever come to
Wow.
real danger.
But yeah, I mean, it's certainly if you're in a situation where you can walk, yeah, you should park your car right as Shabbos is starting. Park your car. Take what you need with you. Put it on you. If there's no Eruv, you're silly questionable. You carry. Put all the clothing you can put on you. That's not carrying.
I was on a plane, having trouble taking off because of various things they had to fix.
Right.
I kept trying to figure out, I could make it to Los Angeles. And finally, I just said, get my bags off of here. I'm going to
You
leave
didn't
the
even
plane
get on the
right
plane.
now. Yeah, no. So I called up the local Lubavitch.
Uh,
I said, tell me which hotel to go to. They'll be near your shul.
right.
It
Oh my
was great.
goodness. Yeah, you do the best you can under these circumstances. Again, when you have, when you have, look, if you're in a situation though where it's not safe.
That's
You know,
another story.
and you keep
Kikula nefesh docha Shabbos kula.
Right. So if you're in a situation where there's a sakana, then you really should keep going. You have a question? Put your car into neutral. Put it into neutral and then push it. You say?
That's what you did to get over the exit.
Anywho. That's not a bad thought. Okay. All right. What time is it?
Yeah.
Stop here. Stop. Okay. Let's stop here. Okay. So next week we'll so we finish this. So we're gonna do the Ramah. Also, the last part of the Shulchan Aruch on Sif Beis, we'll do the Ramah, which talks about being chutz latchum. When can you then just keep riding your donkey? And then we go on. Gimel talks about what happens if you have a donkey and a cheresh shota v'kata. And Dalet is what happens if you have Only a cheresh and a shota, but no donkey. And hay is about what happens if I have a shota and a katan. What happens in above? I have all the scenarios of who I have with me when Shabbos starts, and what do I do? So and then once you get to Zion, im ein imo shum echad. What if it's just you and the open road? What do you do? That's kind of a funny one. But we'll talk about that when we get there. All right. Have a wonderful day, everybody. Take care. And even though it's Memorial Day, I'm here next week, so we're on.
All right.
We're on for next Sunday. Just heads up though, in 2 weeks though, it's the Israeli Day Parade. And I don't know what time Westchester Day School is walking, but I'm with them. So if it's probably it's not going to work out that Sunday for our shear. Unless you want to walk with me, and I'll give the shear while we're walking down.